In today's lesson, we're going to take where we've gotten to so far in that we have an environment, we have a player that can move around left and right and jump and so on and is animated, and we're going to add some collectibles. So we're going to add these animated cherries that you can see here. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to create or add a dynamic camera, which you can't really perceive now, but once I start moving our player around, you're going to see that the camera will follow it when we get far enough here. And that also allows us to create an extended scene, so we're going to widen our scene as well so we have more territory to run through. We're also going to add a finish element, and we're just going to leave that there for today, but that will be for the future to work with, to change scenes, if you will. But for today, we're also going to have a point score. So we're going to have the ability to calculate how many cherries are picked up and also display them on screen. And the other part of that is we're going to create this foreground UI that always stays fixed no matter where we are in the game. So it's basically on its separate, separate layer, and it will always be there. Okay, and we are counting points as well. The other thing we're going to do today is we're going to edit things. So we'll be going back to our tile maps and so on and making some changes, mostly to make our scene twice as wide. So that's the assignment for today. So we will begin now. We have an environment with some gravity and some motion attached to our player. And if I just go play game, you can see here that we have the ability to move around and to jump. And we've made our animation fairly sophisticated, but that's all we can do so far is kind of run around. So we're going to take this a bit further. We're going to start by adding what's called a camera. We're going to make a dynamic camera, which will actually, instead of having a fixed viewable area, it will now be controllable and we will always be following the player. So let's just close this and we'll initiate a camera. That would be a child of the character body 2D. So I'm going to select character body 2D and we're just going to go add node. And I had already started a search here, camera, C-A-M, and it's the camera 2D node. And if I zoom in, I'll just zoom in here a little bit. This is the center point of the camera. Now it's within the area of the character, but if you wanted to tweak that, you can move that around. So I'm just going to finesse that and put it in the middle of the character. And that again is kind of the focal point of the camera, if you will. Okay, let me just save this. And we'll do another quick test run here. Okay, so you see there, what's different is that now we're actually following the character. Okay. Now I'm going to do two more things to this here. I'm going to change this sort of background void area to a black just to show you how you can change that. And then we're going to smoothen out some of the camera movements. But in essence, that's your camera. And when it's attached to an element, a node, it will follow that node around. So what this is going to allow us to do is to actually extend our scene now. All right, we're no longer confined to the measurements of the game home screen area. Okay, so let's just close that again. And I'm going to change that background color. So that's under project settings. And we'll just go down to rendering down here and environment. And this is the color chip right here. So if you want to make a black or any other color, this is where you would do it. Okay, and I'm good to go here. I close that. You can see that it has changed the background there. And when I'm in runtime, again, it is also reflected there. Now I'm going to show you in a little while how to control this environment as well. I kind of like not having it go up and down, but as I said, I'll show you that shortly. Okay, so there's our camera there. And let's address some smoothing though, as I mentioned a little earlier. So for smoothing, it's under the position smoothing right here. And we're going to turn on enabled. Now there's a speed here. So it's defaulted to 5. The higher the number, I guess, the quicker the camera will respond. The slower number, the more sluggish the camera will seem. So if I come up here, let's say if I go 10, for example, kind of double the default. You can see here the camera is pretty well running with the player. In other words, the player is staying at the middle of the screen the whole time. Okay, if I bring that down to a small number, oh, I don't know, let's just say 1, and we try that. You see how slow that camera is to follow? Now this is extreme, of course, but it is sluggish, right? So I kind of found the happy number is around 7-ish or so. Well, I'll let you pick, but I'm just going to say roughly speaking, I found 7 was a good number. So I'm going to hit 7 and hit my tab key, and we'll give that another quick test. Okay. Yeah, and I'm good with that. And so I'm going to close my window here. Now, I did mention I wasn't a big fan of it kind of bouncing up and down when I'm in playback mode. So I'm going to actually restrict the frame to stay on the horizontal, if you will. That's under the limit window here. And I'm just going to make the top and the bottom set to 0. All right. And I'm talking about this space up and below. Let me just run this here to demonstrate what I'm talking about. You see how it sort of starts and our scene is kind of below. And there's some void space at the top, and you see a little bit of void space at the bottom here. And if I jump up here, you see how my scene is jumping. I want my scene to be fixed between the top and the bottom. So the way I can do that is I can, again, come in here under limit, set that one to 0, and I'm going to come down to the bottom, set that to 0 to start. I may also do the left here, but let's just try that with the top and the bottom under limit set to 0. Okay, so that is preferred to me. If I'm running through here, at least now, you see my horizontal's not bouncing up and down. Okay. But I would like to get rid of the all that black area that was on the left as well. So I will, in fact, go and set left to 0. And then we'll try that again. Okay. That is much more to my preference. You can see when I stretch it, it does stay more consistent. It's just not, you know, it's not going to cause motion sickness for me here, I guess. There we go. So that's how we can refine our camera even further. I do prefer that. I guess I could leave that up to you, but I'd like you to try it, and at least for this one exercise, implement it. Okay. So that, in essence, is our camera. There's obviously a whole lot more we can do with the camera, but this pretty well addresses all the big concerns. Okay, so that's our camera following us around. At this point, I'd like to add collectible objects to the game that our ninja can run around and pick up and collect. What's more, I'd like to be able to count them and then ultimately display that count on the screen like a score. So to do that, we're going to create another scene. And we'll make it into a collectible objects along the way. So I'm just going to click on the parent node here, and I'm going to initiate a new node. For this one, we're going to use the area 2D. So I'll just highlight that, and that will also require like a sprite. So I'm going to use an animated sprite as well as a collision shape. So we'll add that to that as a child. Add child node. And what did I say? Animated sprite 2D, and we'll deal with that now. Then we'll add the collision shape here. So for that, I'm just going to go out and grab another graphic. I had a folder called fruits, and in there I have I'll just use the cherries, I guess, and I'll drag that to my art folder. And that's what we'll apply for our animated sprite. So to get that going. With that selected, with the animated sprite selected on my inspector, I'm going to open up animation here. And under sprite frames, we click empty, and I'll say new sprite frame. And then I find it's a little odd, but I got to click away and then click back on it to gain access to the animated sprite frames down here. Once that opens up like this, I'm going to go to this icon, which is called Add Frames from Sprite Sheet. And we will select that cherries graphic. Click open, and it's already divided here, but let me just show you. It's because I did a test beforehand. I derived it this time by knowing that there were 17 cherries, so I just came in, let's say if it was 12 to start with there, and they're offset. You don't need to know the size, but that's one way to do it. The other way is to know the division. So I had 17 cherries by 1 unit high, and that gives me my breakdown of the 17 frames. Okay, so 17 horizontally, one vertically, and then to establish those, you click the first frame and then drag across all the frames you wish to add. So altogether 0 through 16, add 17 frames. Okay, and there they are there. So I'm going to zoom up on that a little bit, and I think I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to hold down my Option key and my Shift key and just go a little larger. Now you see how blurry it looks? We can adjust that through our texture under Filter. Instead of Inherit, let's choose Nearest. And there we go, nice and sharp. Okay, I'm going to hit the play button because I feel like I'm probably going to want to speed the animation up, and indeed I will. And we'll just drive that up to 20 frames per second. There we go. Okay, so that's done. Let me just hit the pause button here. And now I'll add a collision shape. So I'm going to click on the parent area 2D. Add node. Collision. I'm just typing in the beginning of the word. And there it is there. And we need to establish a shape. That's why we see the warning here. And again, that's done in our inspector. Under shape, click on empty. And for this, a circle shape will be fine. New circle shape. And there's the little handle to resize it. Right there. And I'll just make it just a little bigger. Just like that. Okay. Now the next step is I want to have many of these instances. So to do that, this does need to be converted into a scene. So I'm going to select the parent, area 2D. And I'm going to convert that to a scene. And then it'll appear down here in my file system. So that would be Save Branches Scene. And here's where it's going to save to. And I'm going to call this, actually, you know what? Let me cancel this for a second. I'm going to give this a name as well. Sorry. This will just be helpful later when we're looking at it. I'm just going to call it Cherries. Cherries. Okay. There we go. So now when I turn this into a scene, they'll all be called Cherries. We want to save branch as scene. Save branch as scene. And here, yes, I already had the name typed in, cherries.tscn. Save, and let's just save our scene in total. Okay, I'm going to collapse my art folder, and there it is right there. Okay, now this has also been turned into an instant, by the way. You can see that as indicated by the little icon of the clapboard. So I'm just going to reduce my view here, and we'll start to drop these around inside of our game. Okay, so as I said, I'm just going to drag these around the game and place them just above the surfaces in various locations. And ultimately these will be objects that can be collected. Okay, so I'm just dragging the scene from my file system directly to the stage. And I don't want to take too long doing this, but I'll bring a few more out here. Put one sort of above each platform, I guess, and use my spacebar to move around. Oh, undo that. Spacebar to move around. I do intend to extend this scene in a while, so it will be longer, or wider, I guess, if you will. All right, and maybe just one more up here. Okay, and definitely save. Now to take this thought further, I'd like to do two more things. I'd like to make it so that when the ninja collides with the cherries, the little collectible disappears. And then after we do that, I'd like to make it so that we can actually keep score. So to start with, let's open up our cherries scene. I'm going to double click it here. And I guess I can zoom in on our little cherry guy here. And we're going to add a script to this. So click on cherries up here, and we're going to add a new script. Attach new script and just click create. Okay, and just below here, we are actually going to initiate a signal. Because it's an area 2D, we can access the body entered signal. So let's go over to node. Okay, let me just highlight that there and then go over to node and body enter. Just double click that. And we're going to connect to that script. So we'll click connect and there we go. Now in Godot, the command for making something disappear is called queue_free, and I'll just type it in. So we're going to replace this line here. And I don't know if I can zoom up on the code. Yeah, I'll zoom up on the code a little bit here. And it's spelled Queue, and you can see the shortcut here, queue_free. Believe it or not, that makes it self-destruct. So let me just save that. Save scene, and we'll give that a try. Oh, and you saw it, the cherry disappeared right away, right? So definitely that works, okay? All right, so that's how you can make collectibles disappear. If I just go over here, I'll try to do a jump here. There we go. Okay. All right, and the next step, I guess, will be to start the process of keeping score. Now, there is an issue that you may not anticipate. Let me actually go back to the scene here, back to the main scene, and I'll zoom up a bit. You may have noticed on purpose, I actually placed all the cherries kind of above any of the surfaces. Let me just actually put some of them where they're touching the surface. Okay, that one maybe, and that one. And why not this one here as well? Okay. Because it's kind of a generic command right now, when they have a collision that they will disappear, when the game initiates, those will actually have disappeared. And let me just prove that right now, and then I'll show you the fix for that. You see they're already gone. That's because it's a collision with another surface. So we can specify that it will only disappear basically on a collision of a specific element, a specific node. In this case, it will be character body 2D. So we'll have to go and modify our code. So let's go into our script. And down here, I'm just going to bring this down a bit. And we're going to add an if statement. If space, and we open that up with a bracket, so the conditional will be inside the bracket. If body.name, and I guess you're just going to have to trust me on the code here, the syntax, body.name equals equals. And equals equals means is the same in coding most of the time. Equals equals, and then in quote marks, and I'm going to put the name of this character, of this node here, which is the character. So I'm just going to type it in. It has to be spelled the same. Character body 2D. Okay, and then I'm just going to bring this, oh, and it has to be followed by a colon. There we go. And I'm just going to bring that back up. And this actually has to be indented from the if statement. So I'm going to hit my tab key, and there we go. Now, let's just save that and give that a test. If it works, it means those other cherries will still be there when we initiate the game. Okay, and of course the cherries should still disappear when our character collides with them. Okay, good sign, the cherries are there, and I noticed that that first cherry did disappear. So that's being more specific. There we go. And again, if these cherries happen to be colliding with another object, they are not going to disappear. We have said specifically that it can only disappear when it collides with our ninja guy. There we go. Okay. Let me close this and we'll move on from here. So before we address the score game manager element that I'm going to show you how to include, I'm just going to clean up this. You see how I have so many cherries here? I'm going to create a parent node just as a container for all of these. So I'm going to click on that first one and scroll down, and then shift click on that, and then right click here, and I'm going to go reparent to new node. And I'm just going to pick a generic node, right? And then click create, and I'm just going to rename it Cherry Collection. Cherries Collection. Okay. It just makes it a little cleaner. See, like that. If I need to get in there, I can just open it up and address any one that I want, right? Okay, so now we want to create what's called a game manager. It's basically going to be a place where we can, when we can set up a signal to go from the cherry, send a signal to the game manager, and that way we keep tabs of how many cherries get picked up, and we can save that information in a variable inside of the game manager. So we'll start by selecting the parent root node, and I'm just going to again create a generic node, and I'll call it game manager. Okay, game manager. Okay, and I'll just save that, and I'm going to create a script for that, so I'm going to add a script, and I'll just click create, and I'm going to keep that name the same here. I think game manager. I'll uppercase the M and the G to match, and click create. Okay, now I don't really need any of this, so I'm going to get rid of that. The ready is for when the game starts, and the process is for what happens every 60th of a second, but we don't need to address those here. But what I will do is I'm going to initiate a variable, so that's var, and I'll call it points, and I'll say equals 0. Okay, I'm just going to save that for now. All right, so I'll come down. I'm going to create a function next, and this is the actual function that will be doing the calculating. So function func space, and we're going to name this add points, add underscore points, empty brackets, and then a colon at the end of that, and then I'll come down to the next line, and it does automatically indent, and I'm going to say take this variable called points and add one to it, which is the plus equals symbol. Add 1. Okay, then I'm going to come down here, and to test it, in your output window, when you give an instruction to do print, it actually generates the information in this window. So we can test that this is working, even though it won't be displayed yet on the screen. That'll be kind of the next steps. So I'm just going to say print, and then in the brackets, go right here, print, and in the brackets it'll be points. Okay, and that showed up as a hint as well. Let me just save that. Now we need to call this function from another script, from the cherry script. So let's just go back to cherries here, and Godot has this great mechanic that allows us to expose other scene objects to the script. What we want to do is we want to just right click on Game Manager and say access as unique name, and you'll notice the little percentage symbol once we do that. So that's step 1, access as unique name. Then you drag that over into the script and hold down your command key on the Mac. If you're on a PC, it would be the control key, and let go. So that created this variable called Game Manager, and now we can complete the thought. I'm just going to come down here and come to a new line, and we'll type in that variable name, Game Manager, which gives us direct access, right? Remember, to the script for the Game Manager. I can double click there, Game Manager dot, and I think it was called add points. Add points. And I'll just put those brackets in like that. So that will actually now connect to this script, and anytime this happens, a point will be added to that variable, and we'll be able to prove it by looking at our readout in the output. So let's just save this. Fingers crossed. We'll do another test here. And you see the 1 because it landed on the cherry. So it should just increase by 1 every time I grab a cherry. So now we've got a score counter. We just need to figure out a way to display that and share that with the game player. But there you go. There's your proof right over here. And again, that print feature that was in the original script, if I go back to Game Manager, that's what gives us the readout in our output window. So that's very useful for testing, especially when you're doing calculations and so on. When we get to the part where we're going to create on-screen display, we'll finish the points where we will derive the points from this and display them on screen. But for now, I'd like to actually extend my layer design. So I'm going to just go back, I guess, to my 2D view here. And maybe just move things around a bit. And I think I'm going to stretch it out further to the right. So I want to delete these bricks here and then carry on from there. I think I'm going to make the cherry bigger too, which I can do in its in its scene separately, and it will reflect later on. Maybe I'll do that first. Let me double click on cherries here, and I'm going to hide the collision shape for a second. And to stretch this on its center point, I would hold the shift and the option key down. And let's just kind of make it almost twice as what it was. And then I'll turn on the collision shape and make that bigger. And let's just save that. I'm just saving it on my keyboard here. And come back to my mains. Okay. Yeah, it's a little easier to see. I know our little guy is almost the same size. We could make that bigger too, but I'll leave it like that for now. So we want to come back and we want to take these bricks away and expand to the right. So we actually need to come back to our tile map layer. And we'll do some editing on there basically. So on the pencil tool, we have the eraser as well. So I'll click the eraser and I can just come down here and take these away down to here. I'm going to expand these out, and I believe I can do that with the line tool like that. Actually, I do need to select. Let me zoom up on these guys. And I think it was the middle tile here. Oh, I still have my eraser on, sorry. Yeah, that'll make it hard, won't it? Let me stick to the line tool here, and there we go like that. Yeah, and space bar over. I'm going to shrink it down so I kind of get an idea here. I don't want to go too big, but I'll go about this far, I guess. And I'll do the same for the bottom. And we'll just come up straight here like that. Now I need to stretch that background, which is the texture rect. So I'll click on there and just grab this handle here. And we'll just bring it all the way over like that. Okay. And now it's a case of painting this in. So I'm not going to bore you with video of me painting that in. I'm going to kind of take a pause here. And I'll come back online with more stuff to jump over and jump through. And I'd like you to finish your scene as well and basically double the width. I just went by eye. Okay, we're back, and I've completed filling in the scene here with some more objects and whatnot, more ground. I'm just going to do a quick run through with the play button. And we'll make this a little bit bigger. I did make my little ninja guy a little bigger while I was offline there as well. And this might be a challenge here. I think I'll get rid of that little block really fast. And we'll go back into our tile map, and I'll go to my eraser. I think right-clicking, also if I turn that off, let me see if I right-click. Yeah, right-clicking will also act as a shortcut eraser, by the way. Okay, so let me save that one more time, again running through here. And I think I should be able to get across there now, no problem. All right. Yeah, I'm not so good at my own game. Anyhow, you can see here. And what we're going to do next is I'm going to put in a little finish element here. It's going to be a little trophy. And the idea is that when we collect a trophy, we go to a win screen. Okay. So for that, we're going to have to create another new scene in here. So I'm just going to click on the root node here and add a child node. And again, I think for this one, we will go with the area. Okay, area 2D. And again, we'll have to add a child sprite for that. And add child node and sprite. Sprite 2D, and we will have to add a collision as well, but we'll take care of the Sprite 2D first. I'll select that. And I do have a trophy image right here. If you look here, it's in items, checkpoints, end. Okay, and just drag that in there. Now I already grabbed it earlier, but there it is right there. Okay, and idle.png. Now go back to my Sprite 2D and drag that over into the empty box under texture. And I'm going to zoom up to this, and I will make it bigger, and I'll also make it crisper. So to make it bigger, it's the Shift key and the Option key to expand on its center point. And let's make that sharper. I'm going to go to Texture under Filter and change Inherit to Nearest. There we go. And now I will add a collision shape. So I'm going back to the parent, Area 2D, Add Child Node, and Collision Shape 2D. And I'll just make that a simple rectangle. So under Shape over here, we'll choose Rectangle. And we'll just make it the same size as the trophy. And then we'll convert that into a scene. All right, so we'll just put that like that, and that should be good there. I'm going to rename it as well. I'll call it Trophy. Okay, and I'll right click on here, Save Branch as Scene. And it will be named trophy.tscn down in my file system. Okay, I'm just going to collapse the art folder. And where is it? Right there. There it is. Okay. So I can move that around. Oh, I double clicked by accident there. I can move that around. I can delete it. I can drag it in from here. I don't want more than one instance, but I certainly could have one because it is now a scene. So I'm going to delete it actually. So we'll just delete it here. There's my delete button here. Down at the bottom. Okay. And I'm going to drag it in because I'm going to use my spacebar to drag over here. And I'll just reintroduce it like that. Okay, and I'll place it right there. Okay, and that'll do for now. Now let's get back to the points. We're going to create displays that will be fixed to the upper left corner basically of the screen. So to create elements that will always be on top of everything inside of the game, we need to create a node that's called Canvas. So I'm going to go to the parent node here and add a new node called Canvas. Canvas layer. There we go. Okay. And inside of that, we're going to add, I guess I'll add a panel. So add child node, panel. And that's just going to be acting like a background element, if you will. I can make that bigger. And inside of that, I'm going to add the label, and that's where the text will be created. So as a child of the panel, add child node, I'm going to add a label. Okay, there we go. And in the label, I'm just going to put some filler text for now. Points, :0. Okay. And let's just style that up. I'm going to zoom up here. So for that, let's see here. I'm going to make it fill the screen, which for its parent will be the panel. And we do that again by going up to Anchor Preset, and in this case, Full Rect. Okay. Now I'm going to center it. So horizontal alignment, center, and vertical alignment, center. And while I'm working with the text, let's go down here and override the theme. Theme overrides. Font sizes, I'm going to just change the font size. I don't know, maybe something close to 30. There we go. And I think that's pretty good there. And we'll just leave that as is. Okay, and I'm just going to come back here and call this one, I'm going to rename the label actually Points Label. Points Label. Okay, and just save that. Oh yes, and of course if I want this to stick to a certain area in the upper left, I'm going to select the panel. And again, come up to my anchor preset, and I'm going to go upper left here. Okay, and I'm just going to move that a little bit away from the corner. Well, let me undo that, sorry. Select the panel here. And I'll actually hide this for a second. and move that away. This, as a child, should follow it, right? So, but it was just hard to select it, so I hid it. And that should be good. So it'll always be this far away from the corner. Maybe I'll bring it down just a little further. Something like that. Or you know what? Why don't I just go crazy and put it over here, right out of the way. Okay, it's still kind of the upper left, but it's a little nudge to the right. And we'll turn that back on, and let's just save that. You can now preview that behavior, and no matter how big or small your window is, that points will be, relatively speaking, that same area, okay? As you see here. Okay. And that, again, even if we are running through the scene, that points will be relative to the screen and not to the game. Okay. I'm also going to rename my canvas layer while I'm at it here. I'm going to call it UI. And now to complete the thought, we're going to tie in the game manager to the points label. So let's go into the scripts and in the game manager. We're going to have to create an association with the points label. So if you remember how we did that, we start by going right click on points label, access as unique name. That's so critical. And you'll see the little symbol with it looks like a percentage symbol. Then you drag that into the game manager script, and that's going to give you a direct reference to that node. And then you can actually send instructions to that node. So let's just grab that and drag it over. Now when you let it go, hold down your command key on the Mac. If you're on a PC, it's the control key. And I'm just going to put it above the variable elements here. And again, that creates this variable name that we can refer to in the code, which actually connects to points label, which is actually the node. Okay, so we're just going to come down here when it adds points, and we're going to send a command to the points label node to display the value of the points. So we refer to that by its variable name, points underscore label. Be sure to use the variable name and not this name here. Points underscore label dot text equals. It's a string, so we have to go str and then in brackets the name of the variable, which is points. Now this would work oh, you see it's red because I did a typo. Label, no, it should be label. There we go. I love that it highlights right away and it really gives you a warning. So points underscore label, which is the variable name, dot text, it's saying set the text of points label to whatever the value of points is and make it as a string. Now, as I was saying, if I leave it at that, you'll just see the number. So I'm going to append this a little bit with what I'll call some static text. And that needs to go inside of a set of quote marks. So that'll say points, and this part won't change on screen, colon, and I'll leave a space and I'll close the quote marks. And to add that to the string, we do need to add a plus sign like that. There we go. So this will be static, and then there'll be a space, and then the actual value of points, which will be the number. So let's save that. And that should complete the thought if I didn't make any mistakes here. So let's go and see. Hit my play button. All right, so it says points 0. So as soon as I pick up a cherry, this number should change. And it did. Excellent. Oh, small detail. I noticed the cherries aren't animating. Let me go and hurry up and fix that before we call it a day. I'll just go into the cherries scene, and I realized I didn't put the initial autoplay on load, so I'm just going to click that now under the animation here. Okay, let me try that again. There we go. Now the cherries are also animating. Okay, little details, but it's just an oversight. Okay, and again, if I go along, our points are accumulating. And we've got actually a game going on here. We will take this further in the future. We will do sound and scene changes and so on, and how to trigger the scene changes in different situations. So just to recap, in today's lesson, we learned how to create our dynamic camera. We extended the scene so we have a lot more place to run left and right. We created some collectibles, some animated collectibles, and along with that, we were able to count them as we picked them up and also display them on the screen. We also went back and did some editing with our tile maps and so on. And when we come up to the next lesson, we'll learn how to apply some sound and do some scene changes and even take it a bit further. But that's the lesson for today. And just to hand that in, just again, I'll just close this here, go up to Project, Pack Project as Zip. I'm going to say take off the date stamp, but if you leave it on, it's not a big deal. But just put your last name underscore lesson number there, okay, and save that. I'm going to cancel that because I've already saved it once. And that's our assignment for today.